The secret to the whole thing is that everything communicates. Within this realm of consciousness and energy, nothing is random. Not who runs the world, who owns the world. Now we're given the illusion that we get to vote, like we're a vote for Trump and he'll clean up the swamp. Yeah, he did that right away, didn't he? The world may be run by the Rothschilds and the Freemasons, but that's not who owns it.
You're watching the FFG archives, uncovering our remote viewing debriefs from the vault, raw, unfiltered, and decades ahead of their time, now released for the first time on YouTube. Watch them all at futureforecastinggroup.com.
All right, I'm going to do a presentation a la Cliff High, kind of standing at the whiteboard, stream of consciousness. I'm calling this a brief history of the world and how reality works. Let's see if I can do this in like 20 to 25 minutes. It could take years. By the way, let's try to guess how long I can talk before we hear a siren going by in the distance. Probably between 12 and 20 minutes to set your marker. All right, since this is a la Cliff High, I'm using a term that Cliff High used in a recent presentation, observational dilemma, where you observe two things and something is true and something is not, and you have to make a decision. Where I am today is it's a result of several observational dilemmas that I had when I was very young. When I was in about 8th grade, I had a friend named Cliff Butter, and if he ever sees this, here we are, two little kids, Cliff and Dick. One night I had a dream, and in this dream I could fly, and I could fly with Cliff Butter. I clearly saw my friend Cliff, and we could fly. It was the coolest thing, and we flew up this canyon and flew into a beautiful mountain meadow with a stream, where we were, I think we were looking at a mouse. Very vivid dream, experiential. And when I got up, I said to Cliff, we were at a camp together, I said, I saw you in my dream, and we were flying, and we went to this beautiful meadow. And he said, oh shit, I had the same dream. I swear to God, we were flying. I saw you and I were flying in this meadow with the stream was really beautiful. I said, that's really unusual. They took us on a field trip, and guess where they took us? To that exact meadow. Cliff and I recognized it. So that was observational dilemma one, as we were being taught in school and by society that only what you can see with your physical senses is real, that you have no extrasensory perception. That doesn't exist. But we had this experience. Observational dilemma number two was when I was in high school, and the first time I fell in love. A girl from East High named Mary Conscious. Oh, I was a smitten little puppy. I loved her. First love. And it was the fall, and there was a parent-teacher conference, and I said, let's go to a movie. And she said, oh, I can't tonight, got to see my grandmother. And I was such a smitten little puppy dog love, I said, okay, well, maybe she's in 2 nights. I didn't think anything of it. That night I had a dream, and there was a guy nicknamed Frodo. And Frodo was a guy that I knew from the country club. My parents were in a country club. Yeah. And at the pool in the summertime, I had seen him long before. I didn't know that he knew my girlfriend Mary. But in my dream, they were together. It was very vivid. So after the parent-teacher conference, I went to pick up Mary, and we're sitting in my Volkswagen. And I said, I had a really strange dream about you. I saw you with this guy named Frodo, and she got a little defensive. She said, why are you bringing that up? I said, because I had a dream. It was a really cool, it was a very realistic dream. I saw you. And she said, are you accusing me of something? I said, no. what's up? And she said, well, I don't know how to tell you this, but I went out with him the other night, and I'm going to be dating him. And I was like, oh, why did I dream that? So those two circumstances where I had very vivid dreams, where I saw something clearly that manifests, something I could not know with my physical senses, could not guess, led me to remote viewing. So when I heard about remote viewing in 1997, I said, that's the thing for me, because I wanted to know how you could see things across time and space, which I had already done. Now, there are some schools of remote viewing that will tell you, don't close your eyes. You can't actually really see something. It can't be experiential. It's just you get some ideas. You just make something like that, and that represents something, and you define that in various ways by not naming the target. My teacher told me, no, you can see the target. It's supposed to be experiential. And looking back, I think about those two dreams that I had. In that dream state, there was no reality striking my optic nerve. This was an awareness and consciousness that caused me to see these things as an experiential reality. So if I could bilocate to see those two together, and bilocate to fly with my friend and go to a meadow that we hadn't been to yet, then remote viewing should be true. And over 18 years, I studied with First Sergeant Glenn Wheaton of U.S. Army Special Forces Intelligence, who taught me a lot about remote viewing. So I've become an accomplished remote viewer. So I'm not going to share any secret knowledge here. I'm not in any orders or secret societies. I've not been initiated into anything that you don't know about. I've just been a remote viewer. I've talked to some interesting people, and I've pieced some pieces of the puzzle together. So here we have our beautiful planet Earth here in our little reality, and there's Hawaii right there, and I'm standing right here today talking to you. This exists within a greater reality that is difficult, and I'm not going to try to describe this or explain it. There's a book called The Kabbalion, and it defines it as the all. So this, you can't even border it on this board, you can't border it in this room, you can't border it in these dimensions. It is the all. It is the infinite. It is the unknowable. It is the eternal. It is the all. And we exist within that. And I'm not going to try to figure that out, and I'm not going to try to explain it. So just know that there is the all that is everything. And within that is consciousness. So this is very important. Consciousness is a dimension. Consciousness. It's a dimension, and it involves waveform energy, EMF, electromagnetic frequency. If you've ever looked at the chart, and I can't draw this, but you have like 0 hertz, and then you go up to the visible light, and then you go into ultraviolet and X-rays, and the frequencies, the waveforms get lower and lower and higher, and we exist in this little realm, and dogs can hear here, and we have X-rays that can, so that's supposed to encompass our reality. It's like they exist, but does it end here? Does it end at 0 hertz? No, it doesn't. How far does it keep going? Do frequencies get higher and higher vibrational? Yes, they do. And I believe that as they get lower and lower and higher, they circle back on each other. So it becomes a loop. And now we're getting into sacred geometry, which I'm not qualified to talk about. But within our universe is a dimension of consciousness, and the secret to the whole thing is that everything communicates, and everything communicates by way of waveform EMF energy. And that's the key to remote viewing. Some will argue that, but they can't prove me wrong. So I'll challenge them to prove me wrong. So here we have, what else did I need to say about this? Oh, within the all, we have a dimension of vibrational frequencies, and polarities are very important. So you have polarities and the yin and yang, the on and off, the hot and the cold, the good and the bad, the polarities, the dualities, cause and effect. There is no randomness, okay? This is very important. No randomness. Once you understand that there is no randomness, only cause and effect, the polarity shifts. Within this realm of consciousness and energy, nothing is random. My teacher once told me, you can look at a blade of grass, and if you had the observational awareness and the mathematical ability, you could tell where Pluto is. And some other things that I don't want to get into, but consciousness is a dimension. There's no randomness. It is EMF, and the frequencies go on and on until they loop back on one another. And that's how we remote view. How do I remote view? By displacing a portion of my awareness to a location that is apart from me in time and space. So if consciousness is a dimension, so here's the dimension of consciousness, and here's the little old dick right here in Hawaii remote viewing. A part of me exists in this dimension of consciousness where all information exists in its own time and space. So if something happens right here where I drop this, oh, that makes a sound, it makes a vibrational energy. I do it again. Those are separate acts that affect the frequency, and everything communicates all the time. So this is communicating something within this dimension of consciousness. I do it again, drop it there. Okay, I'm going to go back and see the first one. That still exists in consciousness. That's still a vibrational frequency that's happening. I have my brain here, and my body is a head and brain encased in this skull, and I've got sensory apparatus, I've got stereoscopic vision, I've got parabolic antenna on either side, taste, smell, I can feel. That allows us to engage with the world around us. At the same time, a part of us is immersed in this field of consciousness, and within consciousness are loops of consciousness. Like if my wife is standing here talking with me, we have a loop of consciousness where she can know my thoughts. She can look at me and know what I'm thinking, how I'm feeling. You get in a group of people, they have a closed local loop of consciousness. We used to go to Grateful Dead concerts. That was one of the greatest illustrations of a closed local loop of consciousness, when you would get 20,000 stone deadheads and the Grateful Dead were playing, and everybody was on the same vibrational frequency, which was amplified by their amplifiers, the standing wave created by Owsley for the MK Ultra project, which was meant to entrain us into a certain state of being. That's a longer story. But the 20,000 of us that were right there as the Dead were playing were a closed local loop. So our consciousness was all really focused right in here. And swear to God, we could make it rain. We could make rainbows. The Grateful Dead would play outside, and they'd be singing a song about the weather, and that weather event would occur, and we'd all go, woo. So how you remote view is you establish a communication pathway between your conscious brain, right here, and a part of your awareness that is over here. And you learn a way to have data manifest from over here in your brain. And it works, and you can really do that because Consciousness is a dimension. It's all electromagnetic waves. It's a soup that comes around in itself, and you can be in there and you can open that communication pathway. So that led me, that wasn't the siren, that was a motorcycle. We'll be expecting a siren within 8 minutes. So here we are on Earth. Who runs the Earth? I was talking to, I want to clean this. I was talking to Cliff High about this one time, and I said, Cliff, who runs the world? And Cliff High said, the bankers, the Rothschilds. The Rothschilds run the world. Let me draw the bank right here. They got big, nice building, really nice edifice. So the bankers. What I didn't realize at the time was I had asked Cliff the wrong question. Not who runs the world, who owns the world. So who owns this place? I'll step back a little bit. I'll get to who owns it. These guys are the middlemen. These guys are just the financial arm. They're just the bankers. So they're pretty high up on that pyramid, but they're not at the top. The Earth is a botanical garden. I'm not sure how it was created. There was ET involvement. So you have this nice blue sphere floating here in space, and somehow a nice little moon got here that only faces, one side faces the Earth only. It controls tides, affects the weather, affects all of it. It does a lot of things. I could do a whole thing on the moon. But so there's our moon, and we have this botanical garden, and there may or may not have been life forms. But at some point, these guys came along. The mothership with the, you know, the guys that fly in the little, the guys that don't use internal combustion. They don't rely on shooting chemicals out the ass end of a tube to try to move. They can zoop, zoop, zoop. They have powers that are scientific advancements that would seem like magic to us. So here's the ET. Nice little planet. They're going to set up a little game board. So what they have is they have some raw material down here on this beautiful garden that they may or may not have created. Somebody created it. And so they use DNA. That's the code. And using DNA, they have like this science fair project, like one ET says, I created this little flying insect deal, like this. It's got these wings, and you know what I made on it? I made it so that there's a pattern on the wings. It looks like an eyeball. So if you look at this butterfly from above, you won't eat it because it looks like the eye staring at you. That didn't happen. Again, there's no randomness. For one of their science fair projects, they created a fish that has a little thing that looks like a worm dangling, growing off of it. And the fish sits there in the rocks, dangling his worm. Another fish comes by and eats it. That didn't grow by happenstance and randomness, and not by evolution. This was all designed. So one of the wonderful things that they designed in their own image and likeness was Homo sapien, mankind. So what this is, this whole botanical garden on every level, is a competition. If you have plants, you know, you have a little forest and plant shoots up and it grows a tree, it's in competition. Its roots are having a chemical warfare with the nearby plants to see who can get the most nutrients or die this one off, who can put leaves out that get the sunlight and who wins, who grows the highest, which one thrives. Same with man. It's called the human race because it's a race, it's a competition. This is a game board, and it's like if you have an aquarium and you put your fish in there and you admire that and you go, yeah, my fish, look, they built a little nest and they had baby fish. And then I put some other fish in, and the other fish came, raided their nest and ate the babies, and they're having a fight. But it's really cool to watch the fish. These guys are watching the competition, and one of the secrets I've learned in remote viewing is it can be an experiential rush for them because they're watching it through our eyes. They're feeling our emotions. I could do a whole hour long. I'll do one on that. Second that emotion. Second that So you got ETs. They put some caretakers on here that are allowed to be in charge and exert not exactly ownership, but control. They have privilege, rights, and obligations to run this little farm called Earth here. So from ET, it flows to certain bloodlines, and I want to be careful. I'll just say that it's bloodlines. And below that you have organizations like, let me draw St. Peter's Square. You have some nice imagery here with the statues and you know, the obelisk and all that kind of thing. And yeah, okay, so it's the Vatican. And then we have, let me draw Windsor Castle right here, nice castle, royalty. So royalty is involved with this. There are orders, there are societies. The world, on behalf of the big guy here at the Vatican, they sent orders out to conquer. Like they sailed over here and they sailed over here, and they conquered the people, the conquistadors, and they put a big sword in the ground, they put something on top of it, and they said, we own this place. And they do own it. They have the contracts, they have the covenants, they have the paperwork. The Windsor Castle, the Queen and the royal family, there are royal bloodlines, and it's like, well, it's a constitution. The monarchy it's a thing of the past, and it's just ceremonial. My ass. The Queen. See all this blue stuff there, all the oceans, and when one ship goes there and it brings something back and it goes over here, that's money going right to the crown right there. We got the crown. They're getting the money. So you have the ETs, you have the bloodlines, you have the Vatican, you have the Queen of England, and the world was conquered by orders, and after the orders conquered it, they sent the Freemasons to administer it. So it's the Freemasons that administer something. When you take the United States of America, it was founded, created, the founding fathers were all Freemasons. If you see how Washington is laid out, they were Freemasons. So there's really no such thing as a country. It's an illusion. What a country is, how can I put this? It's a trust held by a corporation. So your country is really a trust held by a corporation and administered by all the people above. Now we're given the illusion that we get to vote, like we're a vote for Trump and he'll clean up the swamp. Yeah, he did that right away, didn't he? So you have orders, royalty, orders, societies, contracts, trusts, covenants, corporations, think tanks, fraternal orders, and the illusion of nation states. So a nation comes from the Greek word. This is an interesting thing Jordan Maxwell taught me. Language is very important. The language of things becomes a binding contract. And when you use a word correctly, you spell, because it is a spell. Language is a magic spell used to keep us in the contractual agreement. And by using the language and adhering to the language, we are acquiescing to the laws without knowing it. Okay. Just trying to pare this down to a manageable. This took me 3 years of study and conversations to understand all this. So basically, you are a game piece on this game board, being watched. You have overseers, you have referees, you have umpires, you have team captains, and the proceeds go up to here, and it's ultimately the ET that owns it and runs it. And that's why they're never going to tell us the real truth about, like, well, they're going to have ET disclosure. It's going to be, they've already had ET disclosure. I mean, you can go look at good videos of UFOs. I've remote viewed them. Many people, it's a reality, it's there. The real whole truth about it, well, they created us and we're a game board that they're feeding our energy, and yeah, they're not going to let that one out. I don't know if I'm even allowed to let that one out. So that's pretty much how it works. Cliff high. The world may be run by the Rothschilds and the Freemasons, but that's not who owns it. Who owns it is above, and who owns them is above that, and it goes to ET, and the whole thing is in this great vibrational consciousness. It's a pretty nifty setup, and it's pretty fun to experience. I have been having a jolly fun time doing it. The one thing I would tell you is keep your wits about you.
Subscribe today for full access to our massive archive of remote viewing debriefs. The past, the present, and the future, only at futureforecastinggroup.com.